Hi, Misha here, and as promised, we're going to try out this Beretta PMX-S 9x19 NATO 9mm pistol. This is Mother's Day weekend, and if you think we both didn't catch a little something for sneaking off to shoot, you would be wrong. But we promised we'd do it, and we're men of our word, at least when it comes to guns. I've made a couple of changes since the previous video. Since people seem to really want a 3-lug on it, I put a 3-lug adapter. Just put some basic cheap Chinese rail covers for now, and put flip sights on it. That was kind of my one kind of bum out complaint, is that it didn't come with sights. But since this was based on the TP26 from Beretta Thomat, I thought Beretta Thomat sights would be appropriate, so we put on and got it hung with the HK single point sling, and we'll show you how we used to shoot Tec-9 pistols back in the 80s, guys. But with that, we're gonna pop a mag in it and see how it goes. Very first shots, and again, this is how we used to do it back in the 80s with the sling kind of stretched back. And that was with the factory supplied 30. And now let's try it with a B&T mag. You've been held open. Well, I've had my fun. Now it's Fox's turn.
Held open. Held open.
So my first impressions were kind of letting her cool off. It's a warm day, but after putting a few rounds through it, honestly, I was really surprised how stable it was single-handed. And the only issue I had, two hands, was this stop kind of bumping my, but you would normally have a vertical grip on this, and you could always just remove this. It comes off, so that's not really a grump against it. That was the only ergonomic thing I could notice. I was actually pretty shocked how not flippy it was. A lot of the kind of more polymer guns like the Scorpion, which I really like the Scorpion, they tend to either teeter-totter or even twist in your hands, especially without a brace or a stock on. This did not have much movement at all. Both mags, Beretta Thomat and Beretta, worked fine, hold open included. Honestly, yeah, I would say it shot. I expected it to shoot pretty well because it is Italian, but it slightly exceeded my expectations, and I did notice the trigger being bad at all for factory. No, perfectly decent trigger. Obviously, it would be nicer with a brace or a stock. We're not saying otherwise, but to be fair, this is a standard rear section, so if a person filed for an SBR, I don't think any gunsmithing would be required. That was my first impression. Let's toss her over to Fox and get his. All right, your turn.
So, first impressions, kind of wrapping my hand around it here with my left hand. This is a thick little pick guards here, so
cheap Chinese.
So I was focused a little bit on grip, but positives: minimal recoil. It didn't bounce around too much. It did take a second to kind of get used to these irons, but that's not the gun's fault. I'm not a big fan of this grip. I don't know why, but there's a big gap if you look here from where I'm holding the gun. So the dovetail straight and kind of the top of my hand and this grip do not mesh very well. There's a good gap in between where my wrist and the top of the gun seat. So that was kind of a little bit of a little wonkiness, but overall, good recoil. Nothing crazy. Trigger wasn't anything I'm not used to, because I do prefer the CZ Scorpion trigger, even though most don't. So no complaints there, but I think shoot it a few more times and
oh yeah, definitely. Do you think on the grip, if it had the original stock on it, do you think that would change your grip angle? Because I know with the Scorpion it does.
For sure. I think if you had a stock on there, it would be able to really allow your hand to go up a little more. I
think I gave it a little allowance in my own mind, because I knew it was supposed to have it, and it's not Beretta or the gun's fault. It doesn't.
No, not at all. No.
Thanks, Roosevelt, 1934. Bit of an intermission here at the table. The shooting day is going well. Beretta mags. Looking for pouches I already had that fit these. I ended up taking these. The thing is, this kind of bulgy bottom sometimes precludes it from fitting other pouches, and because it's a straight mag, it's relatively long. In the first video, I didn't mention it because I wasn't sure. I knew they fit, but I wasn't sure how they would function, so I didn't talk much about B&T mags, but as we've already seen, they seem to work perfect with it. So, how do these factory mags stack up with the B&Ts? Here they are. Height-wise, the Beretta mag is slightly taller. And weight-wise, it is slightly heavier compared to the B&T. Now, one change the Beretta made to the feed lips. They say they make them more rounded, which is supposed to give better durability versus the more squared off B&T style. Also, notice these are straight polymer because it's the smoky kind. These do have some metal in here. And the flared base is because one of the failure points of B&T mags is this floor plate. Now, if you look at the American SCW, the new submachine gun our military adopted, they actually have the rubber bumpers on the bottom, which B&T offers for their mags. I think this is kind of their solution to the rubber bumper. Put it on, much more reinforced floor plate. It also would make pulling out a pouch a little easier, get it by your hands. And again, if you drop it, and it can just stand on a table. So I get it. All in all, I would say the Beretta mag is an improvement. But it's nice that it does use B&T, because these are pretty available in America. Not always the cheapest, but available. And of course you can get them in 10, 15, 20, and 30 round capacities. So far for the Beretta, I've only seen 30s. So yeah, I would say the mag's an improvement, but it's nice that both work quite well. Alright, let's try a 20 round Beretta Tomat mag. Hold open again. Alrighty. She had it open. One more go with Fox now.
Open.
So, a couple more mags through it.
Yeah, kind of getting a little more comfortable with it. As you can see, more consistent steel hits. So, yeah, now that I found where the irons were, I could tell that it doesn't have a lot of recoil. So that is a plus. I just really think to get the full joy out of this, having a brace or an SBR is definitely going to benefit this gun most than not. But yeah, I don't mind it a bit. I think a little bit more warming up to it'll help, but
You know what we should do? We should shoot the Scorpion as a pistol for a fair comparison.
I'll agree.
So we'll do that later on and
Yeah,
kind of come back with some final thoughts. So my second thoughts. Tried shooting it this way. It was good. I was a little wary of the reciprocating handle, but having that in my mind, there was no trouble. And then a second tried it gripping up here again, but intentionally kind of choking back, and I didn't have bumping. Again, not really the gun's fault. Again, I just threw these covers on because they were in my range bag. I would probably do better ones, and this came with it on or off. But I do like having a hand stop when you have a barrel this close. It's kind of nice. I can't really comment much on the sights as far as using them. I wonder why. But I can say they fit the aesthetic, and they don't add bulk or weight, especially folded down.
I think popping a red dot on there will really
definitely
pan things out.
Yeah, the mags, we tried 6 different mags, 2 factory it came with, and 4 B&T. No problems, both hold open every time. We had no failures, nothing was edited. This kind of HK rope sling, it is very like we had to use in the 80s, but it works. One thing I would say, before we move into the straight comparison with the Scorpion, when the Scorpion pistol came out and people tried to shoot it as a pistol, the safety, the ambi safety, would often dig into people's hand.
That one does not tend to do that.
And if you notice, this is slightly higher on this side. Well, I'm trying not to muzzle anything. This one's a little bit lower. I think just ever so slightly the right side's up, and so it didn't hit my hand even once. Like, you'd have to really choke up on it, and that's on fire. On safe, you're not even gonna, there's no way. So yeah, I think they did that. I actually don't mind this grip as far as what it is. It's a good size, not too small or large. It's got decent texturing on the side. Unfortunately, I don't believe, no, it's a single piece with the lower, so you're kind of stuck with it. Shot a number of Tec-9s in my life, and one thing I can say definitively, this is a lot nicer, both in terms of reliability and smoothness and recoil, than those. So it's kind of the first half here as we shot it, and unfortunately it was kind of boringly reliable, but we'll keep on throughout the day and keep you updated. Let's slow things down a bit back at the table before we keep on shooting. Talk about disassembly. We have a push pin here. It is captive, rotates, and it does have a dimple on the other side, so a bullet tip can easily press it. It is stiff, but with any kind of little pressy tool, it's easy. I always want to make sure that the hammer is cocked. You don't just run the bolt. That not only is a good safety thing to make sure your chamber is empty, because there's no, magazine disconnect safety because of what it is. So you're kind of accomplishing 2 things there. Cocking your hammer and checking the chamber. So with that, our next step is we basically grab the upper and the lower, and we just press it forward just a smidgen. Here it is. This is really as far as it goes forward. Kind of separates here, and then from that point they just separate. And for your lower, that's it. See, their whole lower is here in this one piece, including our rear hinge, magwell. There's good and bad to that. For a military, 1 unit with nothing to get lost is great. Same for a police department. For a civilian who wants to customize it, well, depends how much a complete new lower would be, or someone could replace it, but it's there. So we can look inside here after we've shot it all day. Probably not much to see. I can tell you it smells like gunpowder. And then we get to the upper, the actual receiver tube. And this really definitely resembles a Tec-9. We've got the sling kind of ring back here, and then the threaded cap here with a little bit of a detent to keep it from unscrewing on its own. And of course this pegs into the back of the lower. And then looking under here, we can see that this tube is actually metal, not polymer through and through. It kind of might look like it's polymer on the outside. That's just a coating. So you're actually getting a metal receiver here. And at the moment, a dirty one. Some barrel markings here. And yeah, looking in here, you can unbolt these rail sections if you want. And it is technically a free floated barrel because it just comes out a nut here and what have you. So yeah, our next step is to unthread this. So once we finish, this kind of springs out. We have 2 guide rods. We have 2 springs and they kind of narrow at the tips, so you're not going to put them on incorrectly. And then once that's off, the sling is just on its own slivery wooby piece of stamp metal. And of course here we just run the bolt back, and like a lot of subguns, once it's in its position, it pulls straight out. You cannot insert it wrong because it's keyed, although you could put it on the other side if and you want to. And here's our very dirty and greasy bolt, just to prove to you we shot. This is a very heavy, solid feeling piece of steel. And pretty traditional. Our hammer kind of comes up in here. The firing pin tip is buried up in here. It is spring loaded. It feels like a real solid piece of ordnance. And here's our inside. It does have a split feed ramp here. Reminds me kind of a FNFAL tube. And that's it. There's some weight to this. And your top rail and stuff are metal. But this is all polymer, but metal reinforced when and where necessary. So yeah, it as easy as that to take apart, and the way everything kind of goes together. I'm not gonna say it's impossible to put it together wrong, because people can do anything, but they took a lot of efforts to make sure everything was kind of keyed to only go in one direction, and there are studs and things to like position your recoil system so it can't twist around. Notice this notch right here. And then obviously, as you saw, the actual threaded portion is its own piece, so that can spin, leaving this free to just go in. Not bad. And I think that dual recoil spring system adds to the smoothness, evenness, and just overall nice bolt travel. So we'll get it back together and kind of finish up at the range. Back at it with the PMX-S. Fox with his Scorpion, now sad without its little bracy friend.
Hold open.
And Fox again with the PMX.
Held open.
So back to back with the Scorpion. What do you think?
Well, as you can tell on my Scorpion, I have changed the grip out for the same reason why I would want to change the grip out on the PMX. My hand just doesn't work on this. There's too much of a gap up here to minimize that recoil Trigger is definitely a lot better on the PMX. I don't like how my hand doesn't have a good place to go on this PMX either. I'm still trying to find my place for this left hand. So being able to find a place for my left hand was a little issue. That's why I just came back to really this mag well cut out here and gripped it. Once I did that, it made things a little better. But
what do you think of the recoil impulse?
It's not bad, but I was shooting my Scorpion, and I do have a lot of attachments. I have an IR light and a laser on there, and a red dot. With all those attachments on the Scorpion, it was less recoil, but it's not bad for this. And this is a really light gun. This gun, PMX right out of the box, it is not a heavy pistol at all. I don't have complaints. Is it my favorite thing? Not at all. But I also didn't grow up in that 80s nostalgia good stuff era. Face it, guys, I live in the hills. I grew up out here. We didn't have Tec-9s and we didn't have all the hood rat shit, but I can definitely respect and understand why Misha likes this. Growing up around the Tec-9s, for sure.
Okay. Evo 3. Held open. And PMX, last mag of the day. Alrighty, so I did a back-to-back too. What I will say, recoil is real comparable. Again, Fox's Evo is a little heavy, so the fact that this is basically the same, that's good. I do find, at least as a quote-unquote pistol, I do like charging this one more, even though the Evo is a non-reciprocating. This is a reciprocating. The more rounded, and the fact that it's back here, it's just easier for me to...
It's angled good too.
It is. Never any threat of whacking your fingers unless you're being a complete doofus, but it's not so high that I think even if we had an optic on here, unless it really overhung, you're not going to knock your fingers. So I did find charging this to be easier. I do like the trigger better. I mean, the Evo is still good. It really, really is. But in this format for both, which is not ideal, I do prefer this one. A lot of it is the charging. No, I just do. And magazines are easy for both, but the mag isn't a good place. I can reach it even with my relatively short hands. Getting used to it. I really, aside from the obvious, it needs a stock or at least a brace, no complaints. And we've been shooting it throughout the day. You can tell the light now, and we've had 0 failures out of 6 different mags. So on the reliability front, it's been great. People compare this to the Scorpion, and I get it, it's apt. But this is an Italian gun. I think a more correct comparison might be with the Swiss Berger and Thomat, the APCs and all that, TP9s. And of course, those guns are more. This kind of falls right in the middle of the Evo and the BNT, price-wise. They're $1,400-1,500, leaving your BNTs about $2, and your Scorpions at about roughly $8, maybe $7 on sale as a pistol. Of course, the Scorpion has a lot of aftermarket support. Then again, it's been on the market 8 years. This has been on the market 8 weeks, if even that. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. I don't think it'll be a daily driver for anyone, but for an Italian collector, I never thought someone could make a Tec-9 smooth. But yeah, Beretta did. And Fox is right. I did grow up in that era of Tec-9s and everything. And it is very, when you go to charge it, when you go to disassemble it, it's very Tec-9. But in a good way, in the sense that it actually runs. And if he doesn't know where to put his hand on this, he would really be lost on a Tec-9. Because there's nothing out here. Funnily enough, for me, I find my hand placement a little easier on this compared to his Scorpion, but that kind of goes to show you just tailoring guns.
Well, and what we work with the most.
Yep, because my Evo, which I still have, is a carbine, so stock and all that. I never actually even had a brace on it. I went straight carbine. So different things. But yeah, first range day with the PMX, if we're being objective, 100% reliable.
Very
no reliable there, and not at all mag picky.
No, and I will say, for being new out of the box, the mags do go in very easily.
They do. Yeah, I even noticed that.
Yeah.
This is the BNTs, but
on my Scorpion, it took a good few hundred rounds in mag swaps to really get to that smooth.
And it is a very smooth bolt throw.
It is very smooth, a lot smoother than the Scorpion. And that is something that I want to change on mine, is a longer charging handle on the Scorpion.
Yeah, I noticed it kind of gets buried in the rail on the Scorpion.
Oh, it does. Well, especially if you have any.
And I would definitely do different grip handles. This is just what I threw on.
Yeah, no, I'm not complaining.
But yeah, there are better grip options here, and I believe these completely unbolt if you want to do something.
That's what I would do.
Different.
I would unbolt.
I mean, it really needs a vertical. This needs to be SBR'd. It needs a vertical grip in the stock, and
Correct.
I think it would handle more like, say, an MP5K. But we wanted to give you a sampling straight out of the box, although for some reason Fox needed sights on it. Alrighty, we'll get back to it and wrap things up. And ending here back at the table, brought out my CZ Evo 3. This is a 2015 model, so one that only had the 18 mil threads. Later ones would also have the 1/2x28. Like I said, I carbined it. What I actually did is, when the SBR kits came around with the stock, I used the included US made flash hider muzzle brake and just took and put it in and drove it in to make it that. As you can see, the overall lengths and everything are quite similar. Yeah, there's a little more handguard on mine because I don't have stuff going on than here, but there's enough, really. Both do come with that, although the Scorpion, the cheaper gun, does have the sights. And this is kind of what I was saying about the charging handle. It's not bad. I've had this gun for a long time, but it is more in here versus here. But of course, this is reciprocating. This is non. And the pistol grip is modular on this, although we do have the safety, like we discussed, that does hang down more versus here. And both end pieces are pretty much ready for SBRing. I will say about the mags, Scorpion mags I really have always liked. They're very easy to load. They're kind of wide, but they're very short for their size. And part of that too is they have a bit of a curve to them. These are straight. Here's a check mag pouch that holds 4 30s. So it's in a lot of ways easier to find mag pouches for these than these taller ones. But yeah, I definitely won't sell my Scorpion. It's a gun I really enjoy. But if we can either get braces back, or better yet, a stock for this, I think, just speculating, I might actually enjoy this a little more. And flipping him over, the stock that would go with this gun is similar in a lot of ways. It's a modern stock. And of course the overall length. And on both, you can switch the charging handle over to the right side quite easily. A little easier on the PMX, but it's not hard on the Scorpion. And kind of like this, the Scorpion wasn't super fun to shoot until we got a stock. Braces to me on this just never felt right or looked right. Oh well. It's a much kind of more square and angle cut gun, whereas this is more of a rounded cut. But they really are very similar. And they're really only a few of the true, like, full-size submachine gun types created in the 21st century. With, this one having a 7-inch barrel, and this one being about a 7.5, 7 3/4. By the way, what do you think of my tri-lug solution? I know, again, people kind of wanted that in the first video. I think it goes well. But yeah, full complete range day with this guy. Literally no failures at all. No mag issues. Easy to take them in and out. Bolt hold open every time. I'm happy. It exceeded my expectations, and my expectations were, not low to begin with. I can understand why Fox still prefers his CZ. His style tends to be, he needs to have 2, maybe 3 range trips with the gun, though, to really kind of get familiar and comfortable. And towards the end of the day, it was really getting hot and steamy, so there is that. But if anyone else has picked up a PMX, let us know in the comments what you think. Again, I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. It's kind of a niche market, and I think Beretta knows that too. But I had a lot of fun, and at the end of the day, that's kind of what it's all about. As always, if you could, please like, share, subscribe, and as always, please do comment. And if you'd like to help support us as we get into summer, check out the link to Patreon. This is Misha, and also on behalf of Fox, we'll catch you very soon next time. It has been a long day and a hot weekend, and I'm done.